Hello and welcome to the big picture. The Ranbaxy pharmaceutical fiasco in the United States after its admission of compromising and misleading the FDA there about the quality of drugs leading to a huge penalty of $500 million is having its echo in India. In the background of the landmark Novartis judgment of the Supreme Court regarding patents which badly hit the multinational pharma industry, the Ranbaxy affair in the US and its consequences are being watched closely. Ranbaxy, an Indian pharma company till some years back, was bought by the Japanese company Daiichi Sankyo in 2008-9. Ranbaxy, with major operations in India and as one of the largest generic drug makers and exporters, is now faced with serious questions. The other pharmaceuticals from India into generic drugs are also now being sought to be looked at suspiciously. Some feel it is part of a global MNC pharmaceutical company's attempt to malign the entire Indian generic drug makers, as they obviously hurt the MNCs globally, especially after the Novartis judgment. So today we will look at how the Ranbaxy fiasco will affect the Indian pharmaceutical companies and in turn many countries in the third world and even in the first world where cheaper drugs are imported from these Indian pharmas. We will also look at whether there is any larger conspiracy to undermine the Indian pharmaceuticals and its implications. To discuss this, I have with me Dr. P.K. Hota, former Health Secretary to the Government of India, Dr. Suresh Chandra, Professor and Head of the Department of ENT at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Dr. C.M. Gulati, Editor of the legendary magazine on drugs, MIMS or Monthly Index of Medical Specialities, and Pradeep Surin, Principal Correspondent of Dainik Bhaskar. And also on the phone line from Mumbai is Dr. Gopakumar Nair, former President, Indian Drugs Manufacturers Association and presently Chairman, Subcommittee on Intellectual Property Rights of the association. Welcome to all of you. First, let me go to Dr. Hota. Dr. Hota, you think that this judgment, this decision in the US as far as the Ranbaxy is concerned, is it going to have very serious consequences on the other Indian pharmaceuticals in India?
Sir, I do not think so, but it's a good alert to us that we should guard against any possibility of this spiraling into a domino effect. Right. In my time as Health Secretary, did face a similar situation in manufacturing of polio vaccines. Right. Some of our companies were delisted, and some public sector companies were also delisted. Now, when such an event happens, right, we have to be positive. If we have faults, we have to correct, but we have to also strongly protest against unrealistic and incorrect way of penalizing us.
Yes. Okay, but the fact of the matter is that the Ranbaxy has admitted to its failures, has admitted to whatever has been charged against them, and they have agreed to pay the $500 million. There is the previous owners of the Ranbaxy, the Singhs, are having their own opinion about what has happened. Anyway, we will come to that. Let me come to Dr. Gulati. Dr. Gulati, you think that this is that there is any substance to this, that whatever has happened with the Ranbaxy is fine, in the sense that it has been admitted by Ranbaxy, the people themselves, that it has happened. A whistleblower, it was because of a whistleblower that they managed to find it, the FDA, the US FDA. But what are the consequences of that as far as the other Indian pharmaceuticals?
I don't think so, that there are many consequences. The reason is that, first of all, this whole thing happened in the year 2008.
Yes.
And it started actually earlier, 2005.
Yes. 2006 or 2005?
Yeah, 2005. And since then, the company has been taken over by a Japanese company. And today, it is not an Indian company. I think it will be a mistake to call Ranbaxy an Indian company. It is certainly a Japanese company. And
but its operations, major operations are in India.
That's a separate issue.
The manufacturing facilities are in India.
Absolutely. Yes. But it is primarily the job of the owners, which means Daiichi Sankyo, to make sure that everything is done properly, the same way as they do it elsewhere in the world. So that is my one point. Second thing is, I think there is a huge amount of confusion about the whole affair. You see, let me take you back to the year 2008, when the United States Food and Drug Administration banned the import of 31 drugs which are manufactured in just two drug units, Paonta Sahib in Himachal Pradesh and Devas in Madhya Pradesh.
Right.
But Ranbaxy at that time and even today has got 9 manufacturing units in India. So only 2 came under the purview.
Right.
And the reason they came under purview was because the drugs from these 2 units were being exported to the United States of America. And they are not bothered as to what happens to the other one.
Other part of the world.
To the other manufacturing units within the country and outside the country. Ranbaxy in all today has got 16 units.
So it is only from these 2 units that the drugs were being exported to America.
Which came under. Now that is one. Second thing is that we are discussing 2 separate issues. One is the quality of the finished formulation.
Right.
The finished drug which are sold in the market. United States Food and Drug Administration did not find anything wrong with them. And that is why even in the year 2008, when this whole controversy broke out, they did not prohibit the sale of the drugs which had already entered the United States of America. Now, what was the US FDA's position and how does it affect us? Basically, it was documentation and process of quality control while manufacturing.
Right.
Right from the purchase of raw material up to the finished formulation.
Right.
So it was mostly concerned with record keeping, giving those records to the US FDA for inspection, etc. But they did not find anything wrong with the finished product. Now, the difficulty here is...
The charge is that they were falsifying data, they were giving wrong information.
Absolutely. But that is more about documentation, purchase of material, etc.
Rather than the finished product itself.
No. Finished products, if they had found anything wrong, then they would have banned the sale in the United States of America. They did not do that. So let's be very clear of what the problem is. And since it is more a question of documentation, record keeping, providing data during the process of manufacturing, which did not have any implication in the final product. Now that is the basic issue. And therefore, to say that the products were substandard is totally wrong.
Former Ranbaxy Laboratories chairman Malvinder Singh, he has completely denied the charge because he was the chairman at that time when this whole thing broke out in 2008. Anyway, let me go to Dr. Suresh Chandra. He is the head of the Department of ENT at AIIMS. Dr. Suresh Chandra, today there are reports that Jaslok Hospital has stopped buying drugs from belonging to whichever comes from the Ranbaxy Laboratories. You think that this is an overreaction, or do you think this is just a first step before other major hospitals also follow suit?
No, I don't think actually there is no report that the drugs supplied within India by Ranbaxy are of poor standard.
Yes.
So why should we react on some media report originating from some other country?
Right.
Which may or may not be biased. I am not saying that they are totally wrong or right. Actually, as Mr. Hota already pointed out, that we should use this opportunity to see if there is any flaw in the control of the product which is coming out of our factories,
right.
Quality control, that we should maintain to the satisfaction of the best of international standards, rather than reacting in a knee-jerk response and after some time forgetting everything what was our basic motive.
Right.
So that should not be the approach. That is what I say. But if suppose we on examination find that the drugs are substandard by X or Y company, then of course there should not be any hesitation in banning those products from use for any patient in our own country, because life of our patients is also equally precious.
Dr. Suresh Chandra, this may be a knee-jerk reaction as you seem to be hinting. The fact of the matter is that how strict and how good is our systems when it comes to finding out these kind of drugs, and we have always been hearing about fake drugs in the market and things like that, but I suppose that's a completely different debate altogether. But before, let me go to Dr. Gopakumar Nair. He is in Bombay. with us. He's on the phone line. Dr. Nair, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, Dr. Nair, this whole last time, I think when you were in the studio with us just about less than 2 months back after the Novartis judgment, there was a lot of euphoria about the judgment itself and how it's going to help the Indian pharmaceutical companies. But then after that came this Ranbaxy, decision in the US. So you think now as part of the Indian Drugs Manufacturers Association, how is it affecting, if not in real terms, at least in terms of perception about the Indian drug makers?
Yeah, I must admit, as Dr. Suresh Chandra has mentioned, we should not go for a knee-jerk reaction to what is now has happened to Ranbaxy.
It has happened.
I personally feel that
Dr. Nair, sorry, Dr. Nair, in Jaslok Hospital in Bombay, where you are living now, they seem to have decided to stop using all Ranbaxy drugs.
That's most unfortunate and very premature. And this is the US FDA standards of regulatory, maintenance of records, integrity of data, reporting, etc. for regulatory approvals as well as periodic inspections, etc. They have a different set of parameters and standards for US FDA. So on that they have found certain compromise on the part of Ranbaxy. And since Ranbaxy has always been treated as a flagship company of India, the entire country is now being targeted for or being discussed with regard to the compromise on quality. That is not fair. And especially within the country, as earlier mentioned by our colleagues on the panel, there has been absolutely no quality complaint against Ranbaxy. And any hospital, if they decide not to buy from Ranbaxy, that's indeed very, very unfortunate and very unfair. And at the same time, the event that has now come to light need to be treated as an alert, and it's a costly lesson. But the rest of the industry must take to more adherence to total compliance without compromise and higher degree of integrity of data, and consequently the Indian drug regulators also will have to sit up and organize themselves to meet the challenges.
Dr. Nair, do you think that there is, we are told the figures which we are reading about is about $10 billion worth of generic drugs are exported from India and most of it to the US. Is that the right figure?
Yeah, about 40%. About 40 to 45% of it is exported to USA.
So that means about $5 to $6 billion, if not more.
Yeah.
So is there obviously which means that this kind of money which should have gone to a multinational, a US multinational or any other multinational, the Indian drug companies are making, and so is there an obvious, some kind of a MNC oriented approach in these decisions?
I would not blame. I don't think we should find any.
Okay.
It is not fair. It is not fair to allege an external hand in this. But where the external hand might come in, we should not take advantage of this.
I suppose, Dr. Nair, being a drug from the Drug Manufacturers Association, it's a tricky question for you, which you may not like to answer.
No, what I would want is that I want the media to take it as it is, because the complaints against manufacturing units, including from Germany or Canada, has been extremely much higher than even India.
Okay. Pradeep, what is your take on this issue? On this, you think that the Ranbaxy affair, the Indian pharmaceutical companies will take this as a lesson, as Mr. Hota was saying, and then improve their standards, or do you think that they will feel that they are being targeted, as somebody was pointing out?
Girish, first you need to understand what exactly it is, right?
Yes.
Like Dr. Gulati was actually telling us, like, you know, in 2008 they have banned 31 drugs, right? But that is not true. Exactly, you know, FDA actually only, you know, banned the import of 30 drugs, and there was a one drug which is actually related to HIV and generic drug. You know, the
From India, from
yeah, from
Ranbaxy.
India, from Ranbaxy only.
Yes.
And you know, the price of that HIV generic drug is much lower than any other drug which is existing in USA, right? So first you need to
anywhere in the
understand-
world, probably.
anyone in the world, right? And apart of that, you need to understand that Ranbaxy is not you know, producing any patent drug. It's related
they're
to
all
only generic drugs,
generic
and
drug, absolutely.
the fight is between, you know, internationally all the patent you know, the manufacturers who are actually producing
Patented drugs.
yeah, and the other one was generic. So it's the fight between generic and patented one.
And just for the viewer's sake, the difference between a generic drug and a patented drug can be any time between 4 to 10 times?
Yeah, 4 to 10 times. And you know, like what we are actually, you know, right now, like Novartis issue, there's a one, you know, compulsory licensing from government of India. It's the first time, and now all the US companies are also fighting on this issue, that why government of India is actually, you know, pressurizing or, you know, putting generic drug in the, you know, open domain. And this is the fight between the US and Chinese drug manufacturers versus India.
The Supreme Court judgment on the Novartis is a landmark judgment.
It's a landmark one, and this is, you know, the few experts who are actually, you know, looking in this matter very closely, they are also saying that, you know, this is actually fight between the patented drug and other one is generic. So US is also, you know, playing this thing. You know, if they are you know, internationally saying that the compliances or, you know, the quality of drugs is not good, then why they are not banning it? They are just, you know, they are just giving you a kind of money, you know, charging you, or, you know, giving you internationally your image is going down. That is the only issue.
So that is what there is a suspicion about. We will discuss that. You have raised an interesting issue: patented drugs versus generic drugs. We will discuss this. But before that, we need to go into a very short break. Please keep watching. We'll come back very soon. Welcome back. We are discussing in the context of the Ranbaxy affair, which was found guilty of certain malpractices in US, because of which it has to pay $500 million penalty. What is the impact of that on the other Indian pharma companies? Mr. Hota, coming back to you, you know, what Pradeep was raising about, and I also have mentioned this in the earlier, earlier. Is this a patented drug versus generic drug manufacturers battle? One thing, there is the US FDA in one of its reports says that, you know, the generic drug saves something like $8 to $10 billion for the consumers in US itself. You know, which means that if it is $8 to $10 billion, it is being saved. Another $10 billion added if these consumers had to buy patented drugs. This is huge money involved. Mr. Hota?
May I request you that instead of, yes sir, instead of sort of going into controversy, which is of course the mainstay of journalism and media debates, I would submit very respectfully that now we have a Food and Drug Authority.
Right.
And Food and Drug Authority sitting with all the Indian leading pharmaceuticals, the pharmaceutical corporations, they should rather see why such situations arise and whether they can be prevented in future, like strengthening the lab system, strengthening the quality audit, and the big pharmas should also develop the practice of third-party audit. Now, the question of knowledge colonialism or patented drug versus generic drug is an endless debate. But we have to fortify ourselves against any kind of underlying bias.
How
and
do
that, you know,
Mr.
in
Hota,
India, I have
Mr.
noticed one
sorry.
thing, sir. Kindly pardon my saying so.
No, sorry, Mr. Hota. How do we fortify ourselves?
Yes, I was just saying, I will just finish in half a second. I was just saying the Indians have a tendency of taking things sometimes casually. So that would not do. If there is a standard operating procedure, we must follow it from A to Z very strictly, and should allocate some resources for third-party audit, independent audit, that we are following the procedures. And better to add it up to the cost rather than think that by low cost and less adherence to procedures will be better off.
Okay. Dr. Gulati, you think that is the way out? He's
think
talking about third-party audit. Of course, as a former health secretary and a former government official, he doesn't want to get into these controversial things. But the fact of the matter, which Pradeep raised earlier also, the generic drug substance. But first, I would like you to respond to what Mr. Hota says.
I don't agree, with this MNCs being conspirator and all that.
Okay.
Okay. Let's stick to the evidence which we have got, and not.
Let us come to the Indian FDA which we have now. Has it been?
It's called DCGI.
Yes.
Let's go to the Indian side.
Right.
There is a fundamental difference, I repeat, fundamental difference between the drug regulation in the United States and drug regulation in India.
Right.
Okay. Here it's a fragmented system between the states and the central government. It is not often realized that the quality assurance, the monitoring of manufacturing facilities, picking up samples from the market is not, I repeat, not the work of the Drugs Controller General of India. It is the work of state controllers.
Right.
And we have got 16, 17, 18 of them. So therefore, we have to keep in mind that our system is different. Now, how do we merge our system?
When you say different, do you say there is some problem with the system?
No, it's not a problem. It is our own unique system.
Okay.
Here what we have decided is that the approval of new drugs, banning of old drugs, clinical trials will be within the purview of the central government, which is the Drugs Controller General of India. Licensing of manufacturing units, monitoring of the manufacturing units, picking up samples from the market and getting them tested
is all the state governments
at the state government.
At the state government level.
Now,
so in this Ranbaxy affair, when we say that the Himachal Pradesh unit of Ranbaxy was doing this, it was the Himachal Pradesh government's job to have seen whether those drugs were being manufactured according to the rules and regulations, or is that what you're trying to say?
Absolutely, but with a big rider. We are supposed to follow good manufacturing practices as per our law.
Absolutely.
We are not to follow the good manufacturing process
the US.
of Japan or US, etc., etc. Now, as per our law, every year, every drug manufacturing unit is to be inspected. And they will look whether they are complying with the Indian laws or not.
How rigorous are these inspections?
They are not rigorous because of two reasons. And I must come to the defense of the drug regulation system for the first time in my life, because I have been critical of them always, is that they simply do not have the staff and money. Now, as I mentioned, the quality control, monitoring of the drug unit is the job of the state governments. Now, state government said, why should we spend our money in all these things? Because drugs which are manufactured in Himachal Pradesh, 99% are sold outside
the state.
Isn't it?
So
drugs which are manufactured in Kerala are sold outside. So it has to be either a unified system, or the central government has to take it over, or central government has to support them financially.
Okay, let me get Dr. Nair in this. Dr. Nair, can you hear me? Are you there?
Yeah.
Dr. Nair, you think that these lax systems which Dr. Gulati is talking about is leading to some kind of laxity on the part of the manufacturers also? And one more thing is, I want you to respond to the other suggestion made by Mr. Hota.
There has to be uniformity, yeah.
Dr. Nair, one more I want you to respond is to Mr. Hota's suggestion that there needs to be a third-party audit, a voluntary third-party audit on part of the manufacturers.
In the light of India emerging as the pharmacy of the world, any amount of improved efforts for quality assurance and regulatory compliance should be welcome. And India should voluntarily improve its own internal systems and quality assurance mechanisms, and voluntary or by improving the involvement of the CEO, DCGI's office, or by themselves. They will have to definitely improve their standards to meet the global compliance and to avoid this type of unfortunate events.
Okay.
There is no doubt on that. There is no doubt on that. There have to be self-regulation, improved
Dr. Nair,
compliance.
Dr. Nair, the question is not whether there has to be, everybody will agree that there has to be improved regulation, but to what extent are the drug manufacturers, the pharmaceutical companies in India which is manufacturing this generic drugs on large scale and exporting it are willing to, subject themselves to these kind of rigorous audits and rigorous checks and balances?
Yeah, I fully take note of what you are trying to emphasize. I am saying that India has the reputation of having the largest number of US FDA approved plants.
Yes.
So those companies who have gone for US FDA approvals and to go for exporting to US FDA has voluntarily
subjected themselves.
All that is required. They must go one step more and see that that is made into a total compliance, and there is entire insurance against any such events happening from any company in India in future.
Okay, Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sharma, you think that in India the pressure of the multinationals, the pressure of the multinational pharmaceutical companies on doctors, on hospitals, is that something which needs to be taken note of in this debate?
No, I think there is no such pressure on the doctors from multinational that you write this or write that drug. The government of India has found very clear-cut rules that preferably you should write a generic name. Generic drugs are as good as any brand drug. The problem was initially we were discussing, will it have any impact?
Yes.
See, if we are exporting our product to international market,
right,
we have to satisfy to their demands,
right,
their regulatory authority.
Right.
We can't say that we have checked this drug according to X and Y rules of our government of India for drug manufacture.
No, Dr. Sharma.
And we export it to there.
Sorry, Dr. Sharma, my question is, when we discuss these kind of things about export, this is just one of the issues, pharmaceutical is one of the issue, or when it comes to any other things. Why do we say this, that when we are exporting to another country, say to the US, we have to live up to their standards? Why can't our standards be as rigorous as any international standards?
In the
do you think there is a gap between the standards, Indian standards and the US standards?
There is gap which is desirable to be filled up, and in the beginning only I said that our patient's life is as precious as anybody else's.
Absolutely.
And our drugs also should be of the standard of any country, any developed country.
Absolutely.
Why we should compromise on any drug formulation which is being used for our country or going to be exported? It should be of the best quality.
Okay.
And that will actually bring that will highlight the reputation of our country in international market.
I think
are being this one single episode, whatever have been the mistake. See, this will be used to malign other companies who may be doing a good business.
That is exactly the
question. So why should we give opportunity to them?
That was the question which I began with when I started this discussion. Very quick last response to you, Pradeep. Yeah. You think that the government has taken note of this, and do you think that, as Dr. Gulati was pointing out earlier, there will be more uniformity in regulations and the way it is,
See, Girish, for the last couple of years, I would say since 2009, the formation and the work culture of DCGIs has completely changed. You've been there
for the better or
for the better. Yeah.
Okay, I think we are completely run out of time. On that note, that DCGI's work has changed for the better, and we hope that in the coming days it will be much better and the regulations will be better also. And as Dr. Chandra was pointing out, standards, let there not be any different standards for India and the US or any other Western countries. Life anywhere is as precious as ever. But I'm sure this Ranbaxy affair should be a warning signal to other Indian pharmaceutical companies also to live up to the rigorous standards that they're expected of. Thank you very much. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Hota, Dr. Suresh Chandra Sharma, and Dr. Gopakumar Nair in Mumbai, Dr. Gulati here, and Pradeep Surin. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the big picture, same time tomorrow.